Come in, draw closer to the fire. Can you feel the chill sneaking in through the window? The nights grow longer, and the world outside becomes increasingly loud and restless. Adulthood has a strange, sometimes sorrowful quality. It tends to leach the expectation of miracles out of us. We become overgrown with worries, like an old house is overgrown with wild ivy, and we gradually forget what it's like to watch the falling snow and simply believe that tomorrow will be better than yesterday. Today, I want to tell you a story. It's not about elves, magic wands, or flying reindeer. This is a story about people. People just as tired, somewhat cynical, and lost as many of us are. This is the tale of a small town called Oakhaven, nestled among the snowy hills, and the winter when a stranger arrived. Pour yourself something warm. We are beginning. Oakhaven was one of those towns where everyone knew everything about everyone else, and for that very reason, preferred to stay silent when they met. Christmas here had long turned into a heavy obligation. It was a season of shopping lists, polite but forced smiles, and the endless calculation of expenses. The holiday had become a chore that needed to be completed simply to not look worse than the neighbors. That year, the winter was especially severe. The frost didn't just grip the fast-flowing river on the outskirts. It seemed to seize the very hearts of the residents. Mr. Thompson, the innkeeper, didn't even bother to unpack the decorations that year, muttering something about saving electricity. Sarah, the local baker, whose cinnamon rolls were once famous throughout the county, now baked them mechanically, her face grey with exhaustion. Her baked goods no longer tasted of joy, only of routine. The town was freezing from the inside out, and it seemed nothing could break the ice. Everything changed 3 days before Christmas, in the middle of a blizzard. No one saw how he arrived. There was no taxi, no bus. He seemed to simply weave himself out of the snow vortex on the doorstep of the town's only pub. The door swung open, letting in a cloud of freezing vapor, and he stepped inside. Tall, wearing a long worn coat and a wide-brimmed hat that had seen better days. He removed his hat, brushed the snow off his shoulders, and looked around. He was an elderly man whose face was etched with wrinkles, but his eyes were strikingly bright, calm, and the color of a clear winter sky. He introduced himself as Elias. There was nothing mystical about him. An old coat, a scuffed satchel, a quiet voice. He ordered only a glass of hot water, but when he looked at the pub patrons, a strange, half-forgotten feeling arose, as if he saw not only who you had become, a tired clerk, an angry housewife, or a lonely old man, but also who you once dreamt of being. And that look made one feel both uneasy and strangely warmed. Elias performed no parlor tricks. He didn't pull coins from the air or turn water into wine. He did something far more difficult for our time. He listened, and he took the time. The next morning, he went to Sarah's bakery. She was on the verge of breaking down. The dough wouldn't rise. Everything was falling out of her hands. She expected scolding or complaints, like she got from other customers. But Elias simply sat in the corner. Then he stood up, rolled up the sleeves of his old sweater, and began to silently help her. He didn't teach her how to bake. He simply stood beside her. In the rhythm of this simple, shared work, Sarah suddenly remembered her grandmother. She recalled how her grandmother used to say that dough could feel love. Elias just smiled and said softly, "You're adding too much worry, child. It only needs the warmth of your hands." That day, for the first time in 5 years, her rolls smelled of genuine happiness, not just vanilla. Sarah cried, but they were bright tears that washed away the heavy burden. By the evening of the same day, Elias stopped by the old clockmaker, Arthur. Arthur lived alone, surrounded by the ticking of hundreds of mechanisms, yet in the absolute silence of human connection. He hadn't spoken to his adult son in 10 years, due to some foolish old grudge. Elias brought him a simple wooden toy to fix. While Arthur grumbled, struggling to insert a tiny gear with his trembling hands, Elias gently took his hand, guiding the movement. And then he quietly asked, "Tell me, Arthur, what is harder to fix? A mechanism that counts time, or the time we have spent in silence?" Arthur froze. That evening, for the first time in a decade, he picked up the telephone receiver and dialed a familiar number. His voice trembled more than his hands, and so Christmas Eve arrived. In the town square, something happened that would later be called the quiet miracle of Oakhaven. The square, usually empty and dark at that hour, was bathed in light. People had come out of their homes, not out of obligation, not to check a box. They came out because they wanted warmth. They wanted to share the light that had suddenly ignited within them. Sarah brought huge baskets of baked goods, and gave them away for free, laughing as clearly as she had in her youth. The grumpy Mr. Thompson brought out speakers and played old jazz, serving everyone hot punch. And by the tall Christmas tree stood Arthur. He wasn't alone. Next to him stood a tall man who looked like him, holding his shoulder. Father and son simply stood together, needing no words. The town ceased being a collection of lonely houses with locked doors. It became a community again. People looked each other in the eyes and saw not competitors, not debtors, not gossips. They saw neighbors, friends, people who had survived a long winter and were ready to greet the spring. And Elias? Elias was not in the square. Sarah said she saw him walking away toward the old woods, just as the first lights on the Christmas tree turned on. He didn't take any money for his work. He didn't ask for a place to stay. He simply left, fading into the twilight as quietly as he had appeared. Who was he? An angel, a wanderer, or just a wise person who knew the secret? Sometimes, to fix something large and complicated, you must start with the smallest thing, with a kind word, with helping to knead the dough, with simply being present when another person is struggling. Miracles happen, they truly do. But in the adult world, they rarely arrive with fanfares and bright flashes. More often, a miracle comes quietly, sits down next to you in an old armchair, and waits until we finally stop running, breathe out, and are ready to notice it. Guard the warmth within you, and may your fire never go out this winter. Merry Christmas.